All right, Madam Chair, it is 5:30 PM exactly, so whenever you're ready to get started.
We'll go ahead and get started with the March 4th Ward 3 Neighborhood Advisory Board meeting. And if you could, our liaison, go ahead and start with roll call.
Yes, Madam Chair. Marie Rodriguez,
Present.
Ilya Arbertman, Zachary Bolton,
Present.
Gabriel Maya.
Here.
Thank you. Sarah Horseman. Here. Jarrett Singh, absent at this time. Valerie Tilson,
Present.
Anthony Dispensary.
Present.
Thank you. And then Jurgen Hohen.
Present.
Madam Chair, and then Marianne Potts is on Zoom. Marianne, if you can verify that you can hear us online, that would be great.
Yes, the sound is wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. Council Liaison, Councilmember Miguel Martinez. Thank you. And then Staff Liaison Abigail Mayorga. Present. Madam Chair, you have a quorum of the Ward 3 Neighborhood Advisory Board and are ready to meet.
Thank you very much. We'll move on then to item A2, which is public comment.
Yes, Madam Chair. And let me grab my disclosure real quick. Okay, Madam Chair, our first item today is public comment. Members of the public may hear, observe, and provide public comment virtually by registering through the following link, which can be found on the reno.gov/meetings portal. And the link is as follows: https://linko.reno.gov/41 capital E capital F AH. It should be noted for those in attendance that comments are to be addressed to the board as a whole. Comments heard under this item will be limited to 3 minutes per person and may pertain to matters both on and off the agenda. The board may not take action upon any matter not agendized on today's agenda. When you are called on for public comment, please state your name for the record and begin speaking. The timer will begin when you say your name and you will be afforded 3 minutes. If you are an attendee in the Zoom meeting and would like to make public comment, please raise your hand at this time. And then, Madam Chair, we have not received any in-person public comment. So if there's anyone in the public that would like to give public comment, now is your time. We will also have a closing public comment session, so you're able to do that then. And then seeing no raised hands in the Zoom, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Then with that, we will move on to item A3, which is approval of the agenda, and this is for possible action, and that's the agenda for today, March 4th. Do we have a motion?
Zach Bolton for the record. I move to approve the agenda.
Ilya Arberman, I second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Then motion passes. Moving on to item A4, that would be approval of the minutes. That would be the February 4th minutes, which are attached to this. And do we have a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting?
Member Maya, I motion to approve the minutes for February 4th.
Jurgen Hohen, I second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I think I should abstain just because I didn't come to the meeting. Is that accurate?
You are able to abstain.
Okay.
So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 motion to approve, and then 1 abstention from member Dispensary.
With that, the motion passes, and thank you. And we'll move on to item A5.
Great.
A5 is our council liaison report.
Give
All
a
right.
second. Okay, there, looks like we're on. Good evening. Thank you all for being here. Like you mentioned, it's so nice to see a full arrange seats up here. So thank you all for your commitment to Ward 3. As you've noticed, I am bald right now because I shaved my head for St. Baldrick. So if any of you would like to participate or help donate or be involved with the cause. We're trying to raise funds to help combat childhood cancer and increase research to make sure we find a cure for that cause. So feel free to donate. We're going head to head, pun intended, with City of Sparks to try to outraise them. So help us show some Reno pride and get some funds donated to the cause. Outside of that, I've been working diligently to try to meet with all of the principals at the schools, elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools in Ward 3 to get a better sense of issues that are going on, in particular to each of the high schools or each of the schools that I've been going to. So appreciative of staff helping me get those set up. The last school I went to was Veterans. And we talked a little bit about some speeding that's going on Kerman. So we're trying to see if there are ways to increase pedestrian safety along that corridor. I think Abby has a few of the other updates, but I'll just highlight that the Love Your Block grant is still available. It's anywhere from $500 to $3,000 that folks can get to help put a garden in their neighborhood, clean their yard, fix a sidewalk, fix a playground equipment in your neighborhood. So those grants are open. The applications are open until the 22nd of this month. So you still have some time to apply. And it doesn't even have to be at your house. If one of your neighbors may not have the possibility because they have a handicap or maybe the elder and don't have the possibility of cleaning their home, you can sponsor that work getting done for them in their home as well. I think those were the three that I wanted to highlight at this point. Overall, in terms of the city council, I think budget season is upon us, so you'll hear a lot of talks about that. There's been some talks about data centers. There aren't any coming into Ward 3, but that's a bigger discussion that we're having as a council. And then if you all haven't submitted any thoughts on accessory dwelling units, that survey I think closed, but we still have the opportunity to provide public comment once those items come up to the city council and we can consider those throughout the process. I think that's all I had. Happy to entertain any questions if you all have any.
Are they still asking for volunteers or looking for volunteers?
Yeah, for the Love Your Block grant?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, we're still also looking for volunteers to help complete those projects.
Is there a time frame for how long the window of completion is? Do they have to be set in a reservation queue, so to speak, before a certain time?
I think it's in July at some point.
Yes, so the grants that are granted from the Love Your Block, the projects need to be completed July, I think 18th. I have it on my staff liaison report, so I can follow the link and give you guys those details. But yes, and then that was Member Tilson for the record.
Thank you very much.
Awesome, thank you all. Have a good meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Moving on to item A6 is staff liaison report.
Right. All right, Madam Chair, Abigail Mayorga, Council Relations Liaison for the record. So today is March 4th for my staff liaison report. So I do have a couple updates for you all. So as Councilmember Martinez mentioned, the Love Your Block applications are open. So here is the criteria needed for those applications. As Councilmember Martinez mentioned, you do not, the application does not have to be for you. You can apply on behalf of a neighbor or someone in the community that you think may benefit from the Love Your grant. So these are a little bit of the qualifications and criteria needed. So they will be reviewed once the applications are closed. And as mentioned, the projects do need to be completed by July 18th. And this is specific to Ward 3, and the projects can go from $500 to $3,000. It's just kind of depending what you apply for. So you could get a portion or all of the funds needed to complete the project. And as Member Tilson mentioned, we are looking for volunteers. So the links on the website, or if you just look up City of Reno Love Your Block, you will be able to volunteer. So if you're interested in doing that, we're always looking for volunteers. This is going directly into Ward 3, which is awesome. And then after that, a couple of board membership updates. So Sarah Horseman Member Horseman was our recent appointee at this last March meeting, so she's here, but I also want to recognize Member Tilson and Member Dispensary, who were not able to attend, I think, our February meeting, but they are here in person, so welcome to those two. At this point, we do have 2 vacancies before we have a full board, 2 full member vacancies and 2 alternate vacancies. And then I have an update regarding staff liaison. So for those who do not know, I am your staff liaison. Happy to be the staff liaison for Ward 3. But I also serve as a U.S. Army Reserve officer. So I've been doing that for approximately 10 years. And I will be going on deployment upcoming in August. Prior to that, I have training that I need to complete March 17th through August. So this is my last NAB. Oh, sorry. It's my last NAB, and my last day here at the City of Reno for now will be this Friday. So I will be sending an email just for next steps and contact, but I do want to say it's been an honor serving with all of you and being here and seeing all the work that's being done for Ward 3 and working with Councilmember Martinez as well. But I wanted to tell you guys in person, and then hopefully I will see you guys next year at some point. But yes, those are the updates, and our team will work diligently to make sure that services aren't disrupted. But I do want to note we will be down to 1 staff liaison. So, and we'll be in the process of those things. So just if you have any questions, please email nabs@reno.gov. Great. As a reminder, if you haven't or you don't are unaware, Community Champions is a great program to recognize those who are doing work in the community. So maybe you meet a volunteer during Love Your Block and they volunteer for everything and you just didn't know who they were. So this would be a great way to recognize those individuals. Awesome. If you haven't already, please sign up for the newsletter for Ward 3. On the newsletter, you can also sign up for other things that you're interested, development. Love Your Block ended up going up to, I think, Ward 3 newsletter as well. So there's just a laundry list of newsletters that you can kind of sign up for other departments. We tried to know everything that's happening in the City of Reno, but there are so many departments and staff doing amazing things. So it's always great to kind of stay signed up and informed. Reno Direct. So if you are unaware, Reno Direct is our one-stop shop to kind of get assistance with the services, whether you have questions about the City of Reno or see a pothole that you would like to see addressed or any of those things, please submit a Reno Direct. And they are also available via phone Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then upcoming meetings, as Councilmember Martinez mentioned, we are in budget season. So our first budget meeting will be tomorrow at 10 a.m. here in council chambers. If you're unable to participate in person, there is a Zoom available, but if you can't join the Zoom, there's also the YouTube recording after the meeting. There also is a City of Reno Planning Commission scheduled for tomorrow evening in council chambers, but same thing, YouTube and Zoom are available. And then the next Ward 3 NAB is scheduled for April 1st here in council chambers. And that's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Liaison Mayorga, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Moving on to our business items. B1, selection of a Ward 3 Neighborhood Advisory Board Vice Chair for 2025, and this is an item for possible action.
Ilya Arberman, I'd like to nominate Gabriel, just because I feel like good to have somebody who's been on the NAB a little bit. Yeah. And yeah, I think we got to pass the torch. So I definitely don't want to do it. So I know.
Chair Rodriguez, I would like to mention that we have had a couple of times where Gabriel has taken the lead in your absence when you were chair. So I do agree that he would make an excellent candidate. Would somebody like to second the motion? Okay.
Can you unmute and say it again, Mr. Hohen?
Jorgen Hohen, I second the motion.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. We now have Vice Chair.
Congratulations.
Vice Chair Maya.
Thank you.
Second business item, B2, quarterly update from the Reno Fire Department, and this is for discussion only. Is the Reno Fire Department here?
Yeah, I don't see a representative from our Reno Fire Department. They might have had a last minute emergency. But I will connect with our fire chief and get a written summary and send it to you guys. And then for the public, we'll include that written summary in the agenda packet that can be found on the reno.gov/meetings portal.
Thank you. Moving on to item B3, City of Reno's 2025 Community Survey. This is for discussion only.
Touch that. All right, you should have the reins.
All right, good evening. My name is Carissa Bradley Cusack, Strategic Initiatives Manager with the Office of Policy and Strategy here with the City of Reno. Nice to meet you all and see your friendly faces. This is my first time attending one of the neighborhood advisory boards, which it will not be my last time because we are taking this presentation on the road. So you'll be our first to receive this, but I wanted to talk about an exciting initiative we have coming up called the 2025 Community Survey. It's pretty simple. It's pretty self-explanatory, but I wanted to go into a little bit of the details tonight. So the City of Reno in 2015 and in 2017 did a comprehensive community survey that asked questions like, how would you rate Reno as a place to live? How would you rate Reno as a place to raise a family? How do you feel about police services? How do you feel about, code enforcement? We haven't done it since, and we want to reintroduce that back into our organization and see what we find out from our community. So that said, this is an opportunity to hear from all of our community members. So we are taking this out to various community boards, community events. You'll see me and our team kind of tabling and asking for folks to take the survey. But it's also a step and tool to better understand the community's needs and priorities. And why that's important is that this year, our City Council strategic plan is naturally sunsetting. We will kind of wrap up what we've been working on and reset our priorities for the next 3 to 5 years. And we want this community survey to be one of the inputs that helps us understand where to kind of navigate the ship and go towards next. So with that, we are hoping that the input that our community provides will help guide our city leaders in prioritizing our programs, services, and resources, and ensure that all voices are heard in that process. So what we're hoping to learn, we want to know how residents feel about Reno as a community. We want to understand how community members feel their perceptions about the city of Reno and our services, and what priorities matter most to our residents. How we're going to understand this is through, we have a minimum goal of 1,500 responses. That'll give us a statistically representative sample of our community size. We're hoping to open by tomorrow. I should have mentioned that earlier. So right now the survey is finalized, but we are translating it into 4 different languages, which takes a little bit of time that my project management timeline didn't quite capture. So we're launching sometime this week, and we're opening it through April 30th, with the results being shared later this summer. So that'll show us kind of what were the major trends, what are the feedback, et cetera. And that'll be shared during the City Council's strategic plan workshop later this summer. And we will publish on our website, and I'll come back and show it to all the NABs as well. So how to participate? It's going to be on reno.gov//community survey. It'll take about 10 to 15 minutes to complete. It's going to be available in 4 major languages, so English, Spanish, Mandarin, and Tagalog, and all responses are anonymous. So we are asking some questions around demographics. Those are completely optional, but they do help us to better understand some of the subgroup analysis that we can do based on some of the indicators in the survey. And how you all can help. So the reason I'm here is both to encourage you to take the survey, of course, but also help us to engage with your community and help us share the word. So we have some social media toolkits that we've developed for all of our elected officials, community-based organizations, and of course our neighborhood advisory board members to help us on social media. We'll be sending that over after this meeting to kind of elevate the conversation. So we've done a lot of the work. We've got pre-generated photos and graphics and social media posts and things, who to tag, what hashtags to use, et cetera. But we're really just trying to get this out there. Like I mentioned, our goal is 1,500 responses. We think we can hit that pretty easily. but we really want to get out as many people as possible. So with that, that wraps up my slides for tonight. This QR code will go live tomorrow or by the end of this week to have all of the associated materials ready, but here to really just see if anybody has questions or concerns or anything you want to get on the table. Thank you.
Do we have any questions?
Yes.
Mhm.
You're going to be sending this to us so we can post it on the socials?
Yes.
Thank you.
Marie Rodriguez, oh, sorry. For the record, other than the survey, is there any other way that you're reaching out to the community, and what are those?
Carissa Bradley for the record. That's a great question. So the strategic planning process is going to include a lot of different inputs. This community survey is just one of those various things. You asked about community engagement opportunities. So this is step one. We're also going to be having meetings with a lot of our regional stakeholders and partners. And once the plan has been agreed to, the high level priorities have been agreed to from all of those different indicators by City Council, we'll draft the plan and then it will go out to the public for review and comment periods, much like many of our other type of planning processes. So at that point, there will be opportunity for feedback, opportunity for tweaking. Hey, that metric doesn't really make sense because X, Y, or Z thing. And this is really an iterative process, but there will be multiple touch points for community engagement.
Give a reminder for the record, I have a couple of questions. As far as this survey, is it more geared towards businesses or just in general community engagement, or is it geared towards a specific side or just an overall?
Carissa Bradley for the record. Yes, so the premise of the questions are more focused on individual household community members, less business focused, but we do have some questions about what's it like to own a business or run a business in the city of Reno. I don't own a business or run a business in the city of Reno, so I'd probably put NA, but there is a question in there. There's 5 main categories on the survey. We have questions like I mentioned earlier. How do you rate Reno as a place to raise a family? You know, scale 1 to 5. So those are kind of our Reno ratings. Then we have a section on government services. You as an individual, how do you feel like we're doing on enforcement of codes or fire services? And then there's also questions about like relative to your own individual perspective, what's the importance of those services? Do you feel like one service is more important or another? It helps us with the analysis to kind of be able to rectify what the priority is. And the third section is on strategic direction. So we have some pre-generated things that, you know, we hear pretty regularly that community members are interested in. And then there's an open response area. So if we didn't capture something that could be within your top 3 selections, then you can write out, hey, I'm interested in X, Y, and Z things. The 4th section is about civic engagement. So we believe that we're doing a lot in the community engagement space, but we know we're not doing everything. So we want to know, are the things that we're doing working? Are the things that we aren't doing something that needs to be prioritized? And what areas should we kind of focus on? And the last section is demographics, as I mentioned earlier, to help us a little bit on the subgroup analysis. But other than that, it's more focused on individuals than on businesses.
Okay, thank you very much. And also on the when we get this information to post on media and stuff like that, is it also going to be available in those different languages? So we can post on social media?
So right now, Carissa Bradley for the record, right now, the social media toolkit, we have it translated in both English and Spanish because those are our 2 most predominant languages in our community. But if there was if somebody in this group needed another language, we do have translation services available to get those.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on, item B4 is the Regional Transportation Commission, RTC, general project updates.
Good afternoon, Paul Nelson, Government Affairs Officer for RTC. Thank you for having me come back again. I think it's been a year since I saw you guys last time, and we've got some updates, a little bit of review, and some new projects coming down the road. So just a refresher, our Board of Commissioners is made up of 5 electeds from around the area. We've got 2 county commissioners, 2 Reno City Council members, and 1 from the city of Sparks. Alexis Hill is our chair. Devin Reese is our vice chair. Tracy Larkin Thomason is the ex officio. She is the director of NDOT. And then our executive director is Bill Thomas. So our mission is building a better community through quality transportation. And we do that in 3 different ways. We're kind of a 3-legged stool. First, we do the metropolitan planning throughout the region. So we look long-term, short-term, and do the regional planning in terms of the roadways and things like that. We also do the engineering and construction of the regional roadways, and we operate the public transportation system. So when it comes to public transportation, our fixed route is known as RTC Ride, and it's the backbone of the transit system. And in the last 12 months, we provided more than 5.6 million trips. 60% of those are work-related trips, so we understand how important our transit system is for people to get to and from work so they can make a paycheck, pay their rent, pay their bills, put food on the table. So it's an economic driver for our community. We've also had 31 straight months of ridership growth, so we're really happy about that because when you look at our transit system, we're going to run the same buses. Our costs aren't going to change based on how many buses we're running, but the more people we have on, our cost per trip is lower. It's kind of like when you got a 65,000 person stadium, you want that filled up, right? So that's the same kind of thing with our transit system. The more riders, the better. So we're happy with that ridership growth. When it comes to our fleet, we have about 1/3 of our fleet is all electric. We've got the rest of them right now are diesel electric hybrids. And then we are also in the process of getting some hydrogen fuel cell buses on the road. We've already got 2 of them. 6 more of them are going to be delivered sometime in the next few months. And once we have our permanent fueling facility up and running, we'll get those buses out there too. Our mechanics are learning how to work on the buses and our drivers are learning how to operate the buses. We are 100% sustainable when it comes to our fleet. So our most popular routes are our bus rapid transit system. And that's basically our version of light rail, except for its buses. So the Virginia line and the Lincoln line are our 2 BRTs. They're the most popular by far. 978,000 rides on the Virginia line last year, and Lincoln line had 454. So Virginia line goes from Meadowood Mall all the way up to Lawler Event Center. The Lincoln line goes from the 4th Street station down 4th and Prater over to Centennial Plaza. The nice thing about this route is the frequency. So every 10 minutes, there's going to be a bus there. If you miss the bus, 10 minutes later, you're going to have another option to get on the bus. So that's been very popular. About 25% of our rides come on these 2 routes. So FlexRide is our microtransit, and that's a really popular addition that we've got. And we really put this out in 4 different zones where we don't have enough demand to have a fixed route out in these areas. It doesn't make much sense to send a fixed route bus all the way out to an area where you got 1 or 2 passengers. So this is the alternative. It's on-demand, curb-to-curb service, kind of like Uber or Lyft, where you call them up within about 20 minutes on average. You'll have them at your door. They'll give you a ride to any of the zones or within those zones. If you want to go farther, they'll drop you off at one of the fixed route stations, and then you can continue on your trip. It's a $250 ride or $3 for a day pass. So if you look at the maps here, this shows the 4 zones. We've got Sparks and Spanish Springs, North Valleys, South Meadows, and Somerset Verdi. We just started South Meadows last May, so we're still getting the data on that to see how popular that's been. But like I said, if you're, let's say you're in the North Valleys right there, anywhere within that bubble, you can get a ride from one point to the other. It's when you're leaving that bubble that they got to drop you off at one of the transit stops. A couple of popular programs that we have that we're really happy with are Senior Ride Taxi Bucks program. This is a card that if you're 60 years old, a veteran, or a person with a disability, you can apply for this card. And every month it auto loads $60, and you can use that until it's gone, either on taxis or on Uber or Lyft. And if you have anything left over, it doesn't roll over to the next month. But like I said, once that month does come around, it auto loads that $60. Vanpool is another really good program that we've got. We're top 10 in the country right now, sitting around number 6, which is pretty incredible considering our population size. We're right there with Salt Lake City and Seattle when it comes to our Vanpool program. We got about 340 vans. In 2024, this program saved 20.4 million miles traveled just on our roadways. And the reason that we've got such a big fleet of this is because we've got so many people that work in the Truckee Meadows and specific areas that travel a long distance for work. So that they're going to places like the Tri-Center, you know, Susanville, Carson City, Lake Tahoe, Truckee, places like that. So they're driving long distances, and this is really good. The way it works is Enterprise will provide a vehicle, and they pay for the insurance and the registration, all that stuff. RTC pays for a subsidy. The employer can also pay for a subsidy. So it makes it very affordable for the people that are using it to drive these. So next steps with public transportation. There's fewer and fewer people that are carrying around cash with them. Everyone's using Apple Pay or their debit cards or credit cards. So we're trying to go that direction as well. So when you go to our bus stations, you can use the kiosk and get a bus pass there, but we're also going to the tap and pay system. So we'll have these on our buses where you can either use your bus card or your phone or your credit or debit card and just tap it, get on the bus. Makes it a lot easier. There's no exchange of cash when you get on the bus. Another thing that we're working on is possibly combining the RTC account with taxi cabs and Uber and Lyft as kind of a supplement. Another thing is, I mentioned the Flex Ride. Well, the Access vans are the exact same model, those cutaway vans that we use for our Flex Ride. Access is our paratransit. So if somebody goes and they drop off one of the customers out in a certain area and they don't have any more customers to pick up, somebody in that same area needs a Flex Ride. We're upgrading the software so we can use that Access van as a Flex Ride. So it saves time and it saves fuel. It's more efficient. It's a better way to do things. We won't do that if it means that an Access customer won't get a ride. Those are already pre-planned. They have to call and make a reservation in advance. So planning is our second leg of the stool. So just a couple weeks ago, the RTC board did approve the 2050 Regional Transportation Plan update. This is our long-range plan. So every single one of our projects that you see on our regional roads, they are in this document. So we start out, we look 25 years into the future. What do we want our community to look like when it comes to transportation? That can look at things like safety, congestion. It could be air quality. There's all kinds of different things that we look at, but we get this document done. And then once that's done, then we can whittle it down, get into our short range 5-year plan, and then our 2-year interlocal agreements and get the show on the road when it comes to putting these projects together. So the active transportation plan, this is one of the studies we recently did, and what came out of that is our neighborhood network plan. What we did is we took the entire region and we divided it up into 12 different neighborhoods, and we're going neighborhood by neighborhood, talking to community members and finding out how we can improve their neighborhoods when it comes to pedestrian infrastructure and bicycle infrastructure. That could be bike lanes, multi-use paths, sidewalks, crosswalks, traffic signals, anything that'll make things safer for people that aren't driving and make it more comfortable for people that want to use these areas for transportation that doesn't involve a car. So we went out, we talked to all kinds of people, different ages. We already started, we had a scoring system when we did this, and the top score on this was right there in the middle, was number 9. So Central Reno, basically from the Truckee River down to South McCarran Boulevard and from Washoe Golf Course over to the airport. Had a couple of meetings with residents. Now we're working on Sparks, number 7 right there. And once we're done with that one, we'll go and we'll head up to Sun Valley. That's the 3rd on this scoring system. So really we're taking this approach, looking at every neighborhood so that we can make the entire region more friendly and suitable for people that are walking and biking. So when it comes to engineering, in fiscal year 24, we invested more than $81 million into our regional road projects, and that came out to about 2,600 direct jobs. So it's good for the economy. We have a lot of people out there rebuilding our roads and making infrastructure improvements for us. So we have some really important programs too. So pavement preservation program might be one of our most important ones because of the amount of money that it saves us. This is keeping our good roads good. The pictures you see there is an example of one of our preventive maintenance. So you can see the patches and the crack seals over on the left-hand picture. And then on the right, that's after we put the slurry seal over the top and restriped it. It's like a brand new roadway. It'll make that roadway last a lot longer. If we don't do this kind of maintenance, what happens is we wait till the road crumbles, and then it costs 10 times more money to reconstruct that roadway than it would for us to maintain the roadway. The second one we have is corrective maintenance, and that's a little bit more money, but it's still a lot less expensive. So every so often, that top layer of pavement starts to crack and crumble. So we take that top layer off, we put a new layer down, and that's good to go too. The final one is the rehabilitation. That's basically when our roadway gets to the end of its useful life, but the materials in that road are still really good. So we can basically recycle that material, lay it back down, and then rebuild the road. And then we're good for another 20 to 30 years on that road. Some other programs we have, traffic signal modifications. So that's looking at the traffic signals. It could be either replacing some of the infrastructure itself, could be the signal timing, could be putting cameras on there. Intentional or intelligent transportation systems. That's another traffic signal thing where we're really putting down fiber optics and connecting these traffic signals to better, to make the timing a lot better with them so that signals can kind of communicate with each other, keep the traffic flowing. And then traffic engineering, that's just making some better improvements for the safety, whether that's, how wide the lanes are, how we're constructing the sidewalks and the bike paths, and really kind of building these roads and intersections to improve driver behavior. So if you look at some of these, I mentioned the traffic signal modifications. That also includes things like roundabouts. It's intersections, not just traffic signals. So we've got some roundabouts that we're also working on this year. Bridge resurfacing. In 2025, we're doing 4 bridges: Coonsley Street, Evans Avenue, Valley Road, and Ralston Street. These are important projects because everyone needs our bridges to be maintained. One of the trickier ones will be that one on Coonsley Street because there is some crumbling of the sidewalk. It's a little trickier to do that one, but we've got a plan in place. We'll get that taken care of too. Coming up here in 2025, some big projects we have is Mill Street capacity and safety. That's going to start up here in the next month or two. It's going to go from about 500 feet west of Kitsky Lane over to Terminal, really closer to Uri than 500 feet west of Kitsky. And we're going to add some capacity there. We're going to add 1 lane going the eastbound direction, and that's going to flow freely onto the ramp going southbound on I-580. We're also going to put those utility lines underground. We're going to make some improvements to the sidewalks and the bicycle facilities and make some improvements for ADA. We'll put in a median that's going to keep people from turning left at 2 of the intersections. That's Reservation Drive and Matley Lane. That'll kind of avoid those conflict spots where we could see a lot of T-bone crashes, make those areas a lot safer. We're also going to close access from Redwood Place and Louise Street to Mill Street. So there's a lot of improvements here just to make this roadway a lot safer and add capacity at the same time. Also coming up this year, the Virginia BRT improvements. So when we first built the BRT, we were using those big green buses that have the hinge in the middle of them. Well, that bus was bigger than the ones we use now. So our original bus stops the platform is a little bit too high. So if you look at that bottom left picture, the ramp that comes down from the bus doesn't go flush with that platform. So we're going to take those original BRT stations and we're going to lower that ramp so that we can lower that ramp down, and it'll reduce tripping hazards for passengers that are getting on and off the bus. And it'll also be more accessible for people in wheelchairs. So we're really excited about that part of it. That top left picture there, that is a mini BRT station. We're going to replace those with full-size BRT stations like you see on the other 2 pictures. And then finally, we are going to add a bus-only lane between Peckham Lane and Plum Lane. So that'll allow the buses to stay on time. They won't have to deal with the traffic that we do. Nice thing about that project is we're not reducing lanes on Virginia Street in order to build that lane. Another one, this isn't exactly in Ward 3, but it's right across the street and it affects a lot of people. So this is one of the rehabilitation jobs on Meadowwood Circle. So there's 3 roads that get into Meadowwood Mall Circle. That road belongs to the mall. We're not touching that road, but the 3 roads that go into it, we are making some improvements to. We're going to rehabilitate that roadway. You can see there's a lot of cracks. That one on the left especially, it looks like a picture you see when they're talking about a drought or something, right? So these roads are past due. It's time to rehabilitate those, and we'll get started on those this year as well. Upcoming in 2026, biggest little bike network. I was talking about the neighborhood network plans. Well, this kind of goes alongside that. So we've looked at 5 different routes that will really improve bicycle access in downtown Reno. One of the main reasons is we want to be able to connect people from downtown, midtown, old Southwest Reno, up past Interstate 80 to the university area and the surrounding neighborhoods. And we want to do that to make things mostly to make it safer for people that want to ride their bikes. Also, just to make it more comfortable and just a better experience all around for people that want to ride their bikes. Those are going to be Vine Street, Virginia Street, Lake Street and Evans Avenue going north and south. And then we've got Fifth Street that's going to go east and west. Sixth Street for All. So this is a project that this was identified as our most dangerous road in our high injury network. It runs from Virginia Street down to Fourth Street, and that's where we saw the most conflict between drivers and pedestrians. We applied for a grant for Safe Streets for All, and that's how it got its name, Sixth Street for All. We received an $8.9 million federal grant, and that's going to help us rebuild this roadway. So right now, it's a 4-lane road. People speed on it. There's a lot of pedestrians, and we're going to reduce that down to 2 lanes with a center turn lane, on-street parking. We'll have a divided bicycle lane and then sidewalks. So we're really excited about this one because it's safety, and the safety of our residents is really what we're most concerned about. We think that this is going to make a big difference. Also up in 2026, Pembroke Drive capacity and safety. So this roadway, we've seen a lot more traffic on since we built Veterans Parkway. And so we're going to widen this from 2 lanes to 4 lanes. We're also going to connect the multi-use path that's on McCarran Boulevard and the one on Veterans Parkway. We're going to connect that with one alongside Pembroke. Galletti Way corrective. So this one technically, I think, is a Sparks Road, but there's a lot of people that go over there to Fisherman's Park right there, which is in Reno. So kind of right on the border of Ward 3. We're going to go in there in 2026, and we're going to do that mill and fill where you take that top layer of pavement off and lay a new layer down on top of it. Really make this road last a lot better. And you can see just how the kind of shape that it's in, lots of cracks. And you can see where we've done already some crack sealing that's worn off over the years. Smithbridge Drive and rehabilitation. So but rehabilitation. This is going to run from McCarran Boulevard to Peckham Lane. Same kind of thing. This one is really damaged. You can see the damage on it. This is that last step where that roadway is at the last leg of its life. So we're going to go in there and rebuild the base using the same materials, rebuild that base, and then put another layer on the top of it, make this road last a lot longer. Something that will affect us regionally that we're looking into is the connectors, some alternative routes between Reno and Sparks and the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center. There are 2 roads that we're looking at to possibly build in the future. One of them would be La Posada Drive up in Spanish Springs down to USA Parkway. The other one would be South Meadows Parkway over to USA Parkway. The third thing we're looking at is commuter rail. And we know that with I-80, they are going to widen that from 4 lanes to 6 lanes and going, to and from the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center. But we know that we need to do more than that because anytime there's a crash out there or a weather situation, we see how backed up that roadway gets. So we are in the middle of a feasibility study right now that would look into the possibility of commuter rail. We would be using UP existing rail line. So we would have to work with them to figure out a schedule and if they've got capacity to allow commuter rail on it. We also, just last week, there was a hearing down in Carson City at the legislature regarding a toll road. That would be that road from Spanish Springs down to USA Parkway. We're looking at every way possible to pay for this kind of thing because they're very expensive roads to build. There's also, these are federal lands, and we would either have to get a BLM easement or we would have to have a lands bill happen. So there's a lot of things that we've got to do, but figuring out how to pay for it is the biggest part of it. And so the toll road was in front of the legislature just last week, and that would just allow us to look into the possibility of building a toll road. We're not going to spend taxpayer dollars studying this if it's illegal to build anyway. So that's where that one stands right now. When it comes to revenues, fiscal year 2025 budget is $253 million. Most of that comes from fuel tax, 42%. We also get 18% for sales tax. We do get a fair amount of federal funding, both formula funds, and we've been successful getting some discretionary grants. Passenger fees amount to 1.5%. We do get a little bit of money from NDOT and then some other sources like RIF fees. So when a developer goes in and each unit they build, they pay a fee of $5,000 and that goes towards infrastructure improvements. And then our expenditures, $284 million. almost 30% of that goes towards our transit system. 28.4 goes into new roadway projects. That preservation of multimodal, keeping our good roads good, that's almost 30% right there. Our debt service is 8.1%, and then our MPO operating is 1.6%. With that, I'll take any questions.
Madam Chair, I have a question. What about the Keystone Bridge? It's outside of Ward 3, I think, but I love that bridge and it's falling apart. I didn't see it on the schedule.
Yeah, so we've got 3 bridge projects going across the Truckee River in the next few years. We're breaking ground on Arlington Bridges in May. And once that one is completed, we're gonna start on Sierra Street Bridge. Once that's done, we're gonna start on Keystone Bridge. We've had some public meetings on that one, and we learned that the public does want to see some access for pedestrians and bicycles on the Keystone Bridge. So the plan going forward is a 4-lane bridge, just like it is right now, with a sidewalk or a multi-use path or something like that for that bridge. We're tentatively looking at 2027 to rebuild that bridge, but we're not gonna do 2 bridges at the same time. So after the Sierra Street Bridge is done, we'll start on 2027, or hopefully 2027 with Keystone Bridge. And that one right now is the first 2 bridges, those are already funded. We've got a way to pay for that. We're looking at different federal grants, possibly the Bridge Investment Program. I think that's what it's called. We're looking at different options federally to bring some of the money. That's the most expensive bridge that we'll replace. Right now, it's standing around 75 million, but we're looking at ways that we're gonna get that done too.
Jürgen Hohn for the record. Another question. So you have 30, how many buses do you have and what's the average cost per month to run a bus with personnel?
Right now, I think we have 68 buses. I don't know what the average is per bus to operate them. But like I said, it's almost 30% of our expenditures goes towards transit. I think, what did I say? That was 283 million. So figure 30% of that is what we're spending a year. I can't do the math off the top of my head.
But that includes your variable vans, includes all the other
Yes,
things
that
on
includes-
transportation, the
includes
great
Flex
system you
Ride,
have.
Access, the van pool program, all those things. The most expensive one that we have is Access. And that's a federally mandated program that we have to provide transportation for people with disabilities. That's the most expensive one. It actually ends up being about $60 per ride.
Ilya Arman for the record. The bike routes that you were talking about, Vine Street, Fifth Street, are those going to be similar to like what's happened on Virginia Street with like the protected lane, or are those going to be something different?
So some of them,
Not this one you're saying?
this one.
Yeah,
this
that one. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we actually have some animation on this one. I think it's, if you go to our website and go to the Biggest Little Bike Network, there's a link that you can click and it'll show you some animation of what it's gonna be. Some areas are gonna have some barriers, but they're not gonna be permanent bollards. I think they're gonna be those flex posts, things like that. There will be some where there's gonna be a curb between the bike lane and the sidewalk. So it just depends on which route there are. And then if you look farther, when Evans Avenue turns into Sinclair Street, that's more of a small neighborhood street, and that's gonna be what we consider what's it called? A bicycle boulevard.
So
Yeah.
you can bike in the street, basically.
What's that?
Meaning the bikes kind of can go in the street, or
Yeah.
they're encouraged to do that.
Yep.
Okay, cool. I'll check it out online. Thanks.
Jürgen Hohn for the record. So do you have any plans for bike bridges? Because I love biking the Truckee Trail, and there's one bike bridge over the Truckee River. I would say that might be a better, safer way for us to facilitate bikes.
Yeah, rather than putting them over the bridges. We have looked at the possibility of putting some down. I know that right now with Keystone Bridge in particular, there was some talk about not putting sidewalks and bikes on there and having them use Booth Street Bridge, but then there's also questions about Booth Street and how it relates to flooding. So there was talk about possibly putting a bike bridge over there if down the road Booth Street went away. But I don't think there's any plan right now for that to happen. And as far as putting in more bike bridges, I don't think we have any of that in the plans. Short term, at least.
Anthony Dispensary for the record. I noticed that the lines that you have on the map here are all quite linear, sort of A to B. There's not really much of a loop or a flow or configuration if you were trying to actually, do any kind of a loop bike ride. I don't know if there's any concept for that in the future or what that could potentially look like.
So in terms of having more of like a recreational route for people to drive? Yeah, this is more of getting people out of their cars and allowing them to get from point A to point B. Another thing with this is we know that, most people will take their cars, even if it's a short trip, they'll take their cars to the grocery store. We want to make it more comfortable for people that if they want, they can ride the bike to the grocery store instead. Things like that. That 1 mile type of trip, that's kind of what we're trying to accomplish with this.
Follow-up question related to the really the active transportation plan that you've described. You said you kind of indicated that seemed like a completed project where you had already assessed feedback and sort of are incorporating that. Is that still an ongoing thing where people can contribute to that, or is that fully completed already? Because there are some specific, you mentioned some pedestrian type projects that I don't know if there's any ability to influence any further.
Yeah, right now we're still doing the planning part of it. This is a plan that we're doing. Construction will come down the road. So you can go on the website and find the active transportation plan, the neighborhood network plan, and you can still make comments on that.
Marie Rodriguez for the record. Looking at the revenues fiscal year 2025 budget and where the money's coming from, the one on top, which has the highest percentage, has to do with fuel tax. And this kind of reminded me of a conversation I was having with my brother, discussing how we have an increase of electric cars that do not use fuel. So we got more of these cars on the road, not paying a fuel tax because they're not buying gasoline. And some of them are notoriously heavier and do more damage to the roads, such as Teslas. Are you looking into a way of having these electric cars contribute to our roads since they're not paying these fuel taxes and they are causing more damage to our roads?
Yeah, and we're looking at EV parity. So right now we're discussing this possibility with our legislature. And really what we think is the best option, because there's a lot of different ways that some states are already doing this. Some of it's mileage based, some of it is a flat fee. And we think the easiest route, at least short term, would be if the state would pass an EV fee at registration. It comes out to about $161 for the state. And then that would be basically equivalent to what the average person pays for fuel taxes every year. So that's about $161. We're also hoping that if this does pass, that they will give the county commissioners the ability to add their own EV parity tax or fee to align with the county's fuel taxes. So in Washoe County, we've got indexing. So every year, depending on inflation, basically, the fuel tax will go up a little bit to keep up with the construction costs. So we're hoping that we'll have the ability to have that $161 that the state would ask for, and then have the match at the county level to match what we're paying in fuel taxes. There's a lot of moving parts to it. It's very political. I know that the federal government is also looking at the possibility of doing a federal EV fee. And I think they said theirs is right around $150. So we'll see where this one goes.
And I'm very interested in this road that you're working on between Veterans Parkway and McCarran on Pembroke. That definitely needs to be widened, so I'm glad to hear about that being in the plan. I think it's 2026 though. In taking into account this widening and these road repairs, with Veterans Parkway, the commercial traffic has changed in that area. Mariloma technically is a non-commercial route, but we do have trucks using that to get from Veterans Parkway to McCarran because that's turned into a commercial area, the area behind the airport, the area up the road there. And so instead of going just Glendale and Gregg, they're going further down on Veterans and using that as across because it doesn't make sense to go all the way down to South Meadows or down Gregg when they're just going right there by the airport. So in doing this to Pembroke, are you taking into account that we do have more commercial traffic in that area?
I'll
So
have to
that the
check with
road
that.
is truck worthy because they're going to be using that road. The trucks will be using that road
So in terms of building the road, so
to
it's
handle
so it can handle that kind of
80,000
work.
pounds. Yeah,
I'll have to check with our engineers
Yeah.
on the type of work they're doing on that.
yeah, because just so you know, that's going to be an issue. They're going to be using that road.
Yeah, especially with the development where
Mhm.
UNR Farms is, right?
Yep.
Jeremiah, for the record, also in that area, in the near future, DATS is gonna open one of their facilities for their trucking company. Therefore, the whole area, that section of town is gonna be heavily used for trucking. So we had to look into that as well, to take those things into consideration while we're planning for these widening of lanes and whatnot. I just had a quick comment as far as I think overall the services that you guys provide are pretty good. I do have a little concern about the access um portion of the service. I feel more than anything I have a situation that I know of personally where this person petitioned an access bus, and they went to pick him up, drop him off at the location, and when he needs to get picked up again to bring him back so they can get back home, um sometimes the messages that they get sent to the phone are very vague as far as it's either going to be a Uber, Lyft, or the bus itself. And there was a situation where there's miscommunication because of those very vague texts, and he got picked up by an Uber, and the Uber started driving off over to, let's say, North Valleys, when the person should have been dropped off in Mira Loma. And the problem was that since the driver since there was confusion with that, this individual got dropped off in the middle of Sun Valley and wasn't provided any transportation back to to Mira Loma. And so it was kind of chaotic because this person is a special needs person who can get lost, gets really disoriented with different areas, especially one that he doesn't even know, which is Sun Valley. So it's I think it could be taken. It's not necessarily a complaint, but we need to take more into consideration about the texting and how the things are, on the administrative level, to make sure that if it's going to be a Uber, it has to be specifically on the text says an Uber is going to pick you up or something more of those lines. That's only, and I also heard of other issues with access, but I think it's more person by person, situation by situation. But I think even though you did mention it's one of the more expensive routes you guys do, and I think it also should be looked at a little bit more deeper as well to make sure you guys are giving a good service to those people that are using that service.
Yep. I'll just point out too, it is the most expensive service for the RTC, not for the customer.
Anthony Dispensary, for the record. I noticed that almost 30% of your budget comes from federal funding sources. I didn't know if you had any concerns about the security of that funding source, given sort of the larger environment, what's going on.
Yeah, we're watching it and we're letting it play out. We're expecting that things will get back on track once they review everything. But one thing that we were in the process of just up until about 3 weeks ago was we were applying for the Protect Grant for Sun Valley Boulevard. And that was going to be for $40 million. And a couple weeks before we were going to apply, they paused that grant. So we're waiting to see, all right, are you going to bring this grant back in? Because we've already done a lot of work, spent a lot of money putting this application together. We want to know, all right, is this grant going to come back into play so that we can apply for it? Or do we got to look elsewhere and apply for grants? We are moving forward regardless of if the federal funding is there or not. The projects for this year, we've got the funding. It's looking down the road and trying to secure more of that funding that we're really looking at And we're confident that it'll all end up working itself out.
Valerie Tilston for the record. I was wondering on the Pembroke construction plans, since adaptive biking's down the street and there's already talk about building in motion for one water field, the ultimate pipe dream is eventually 9 more, which who knows when that will happen. Question is, there's going to be bike lanes. Is it going to be similar to the way it is on, let's say, South McCarran and Miraloma, or South McCarran and Longley, that has a separate area from the traffic with the stone barriers? Or will it be kitty corner along with the cars and the speed limit correlations and the width of the lanes, and if you need dividers?
Yeah, it'll be a separated multi-use path like you see on McCarran and like you see on Veterans Parkway.
And will it be, Valerie Silston for the record, will there be a 2 or, well, it's already 2 lanes right now, so is it gonna go to 4 lanes? Will there be a middle divider, so the cars that are that are residents are gonna be able to get onto the street? Because, back in when it was hash lane decades ago, you had that middle lane as a Hail Mary, and you had to gauge it just right to get in, or you get your rear end tapped. So I just want to make sure that there's allowance for those neighbors that probably feel isolated of Metropolis is growing. We want to be included and be considered for our transit needs.
I'll have to look into that. I think it's, as of now, as I understand it, it's 4 lanes. I don't know if there is a center turn lane or not. Normally I have an engineer that comes here with us today, but his son had a Little League game tonight, so he couldn't make it. He could have answered that better than me.
Valerie Tilston for the record. Valerie Tilston for the record. Also for the traffic signals, I know on the city they've been questioning, and yes, and on the RTC meetings, I believe, more and on the access advisory board, they're wanting more audio on the crosswalks and more sensors for those who are partial vision that may not be able to see colors, to have more auditory signals. Is that going to be inclusive? And is the facades of the front plates of the light signals now going to be not coned, as in the image on the left, that are funneled versus flat? Or is that just an optic that I see from the pictures?
So when it comes to that picture on the left, the reason we've got that yellow border on it is so that people that are colorblind, they have a better perspective, so they can see which light is lit up versus the color. When it comes to more of the audio, every project that we do, if it's not already up to ADA compliance, we bring it up to ADA compliance. And that could be whether that's the push buttons with the audio, it could be the plates on the curb to let people know, for people that are that can't really see very well or that are blind. We put those down so they can tell that they're right there at the edge of the road. So every project that we look at, we call it our Complete Streets program, where we try to improve the roadway for everyone, and that includes ADA upgrades.
Valerie Tilston for the record again. Another pipe dream was wondering, there's always rumble strips. I think South Meadows had one next to Smith's, where I'm not sure, maybe I'm not remembering, but is there any type of bumps that can be put around? I'm thinking more about the adaptive because of the amount of bikes and how active that area is. I'm just trying to think of, I withdraw my comment.
Sarah Horseman for the record. I noticed that on your budget, your expenditures are much higher than your revenue. How do you guys get funded for the deficit?
So it's not actually a deficit. What we do is, this is part of our planning for the future. And so even though our revenues are 253 million, we've put some money away planning for bigger road projects that we know are going to be high dollar amounts for the future. So it's really more of a savings account, and that's where the discrepancy is.
Jürgen Hohen, one last question. Is there any plan, especially on South McCarran, where it's like crazy, like, what is that street, Madam Chair? South McCarran, where the Rattlesnake Mountain is, Longley down there. It's like crazy. I'm even afraid to walk across it, right? It's like what, 8 lanes or 12 lanes or 100 lanes, something like that. So, and kids are going to the park from the residential across that street by the shopping center. Is there any Mariloma? Yeah. Is there any thought maybe in doing a pedestrian tunnel for kids that's well lit,
We're not looking at doing like a tunnel or anything like that, but I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago, NDOT did a study of the entire McCarran Loop to see where some improvements can be made. One of them that we're in the process of, so there's some federal money that will be coming to NDOT, and NDOT can use that money in different areas of the state. We're applying to NDOT to make improvements at 3 different locations around McCarran Boulevard. One of them, it's not that intersection. It's between Virginia Street and what is that one? Airway Drive. We're gonna actually reduce the lanes on that one. So there'll be less traffic going through there and make some safety improvements for pedestrians and cyclists. There's a couple other locations. One of them's up on Sutro, making improvements to that intersection, and one on Prater. So we are looking at the entire McCarran Loop. There's also, I know the city of Reno was really looking into that area right by Lakeside, where the tennis courts were. So that's another area that I know that has been getting a lot of focus lately.
Marie Rodriguez for the record. Just going back to the area that he's talking about, that area basically exploded once Veterans Parkway opened up, because now people are using Veterans Parkway to get into that area. So it's more evident during rush hour. But it is very difficult because you do have a shopping center across from a park, across from a neighborhood. And they did do some improvement, like with the divider along McCarran between Mill and Mariloma. And they did do a divider between Mariloma down to Longley, so that people do have to cross at an intersection where they used to cross McCarran jaywalking, which was quite dangerous. So that is definitely an area that could use addressing, because there are frequent accidents down at McCarran and Rio Poco, and right there at McCarran, and the response time is sometimes very difficult, especially during rush hour, as far as EMS response.
Yep,
Yeah.
I will take that back and let the engineers know.
Anthony Dispensary, one more question. Regarding the walkability of sort of the Midtown corridor. South Center specifically is sort of a bypass for Virginia, because it sort of gets jammed up and is slower. But all the neighborhood access that sort of flows and walks into that area has to cross South Center. I know that there was recently, thankfully, at least an additional crosswalk placed across, I think it was across Moran. But the entirety of that street is basically a straightaway. And I think it's 30 miles an hour, which means that people drive 40. And there are entire cities in this country where the maximum speed limit for entire small towns, like speed trap kind of towns, where it's 25 miles an hour. This is like a pedestrian core where we're trying to encourage people to be more walkable, more neighborly. And I don't know if there's any way for the RTC to consider potentially making that, bringing the speed limit down a little bit there to 25, just so that it's more walkable and more, just walking across that street alone can be quite dangerous when somebody's driving as fast as they often do. So I don't know if that's something that you guys could take into consideration.
I don't think RTC actually sets the speed limits. That would be the city of Reno would set that. When it comes to what we would do is, say we get to a point where we're gonna do like a reconstruction project on Center Street, we could look at ways to engineer it to maybe encourage people to drive slower. And that could be, there are some ways that people do it by, making the lanes more narrow, so it feels less comfortable to go that fast. So there's different ways, when we get to that point, that we can look at the safety of it. Thank you.
Moving on to item C. Development projects for discussion only. And it's developer of physical development project which is subject to review by the Planning Commission or Reno City Council may present this project. Do we have somebody presenting this? Okay. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Stacy Huggins with Wood Rogers for the record. I'm representing the Washoe County School District in this request for a zone change on the properties. Let's see, it's this one. 2 parcels. Is it this one, Abby? Oh, there we go. So I'm sure these are 2 parcels that you all are very, very familiar with. The parcel on the south, outlined there in blue on the left, is the Worcester High School parcel. And directly north of that is Corbett Elementary School. And so those 2 sites are the subject of this zone change that I'm presenting to you tonight. Combined, they're about 43 acres in size. You can see the map on the right is from the City of Reno's master plan. It identifies both parcels as public, quasi-public, so that PQP. In terms of the zoning and the reason why we're seeking the zone change tonight, the current zoning on this parcel is single family 8,000 or 8 units to the acre, so SF8. That's not really an ideal zoning designation for schools, and it doesn't conform with the master plan designation of PQP. So the zone change is in an effort to clean up the zoning on the property. The rezone would be to public facility, which is a conforming zoning district to the PQP. It also allows the single family, or I'm sorry, it allows the schools in both districts, but what the public facility does not allow in the zoning is multifamily uses. So right now, under SF8, single family is allowed, schools are allowed, multifamily is permitted on these properties. So if the site were to be repurposed for any reason, you could see there would be potential for a different mix of uses. The public facility zoning designation would limit the future uses on this site to schools as the primary use, and then potentially single family if that was an option. Again, this is really about consistency and bringing the current school use and the zoning into conformance with that underlying public, quasi-public master plan designation. There are some additional design standards under the SF8 zoning that would create some challenges for redevelopment or enhancements at either one of these school sites. So the public facility zoning makes redevelopment or expansions of the school site much more in line with the actual school use. That is the presentation tonight. We are here in front of you tonight for some feedback, and then we are scheduled for Planning Commission in 2 weeks on March 19th. So that concludes my presentation. Here's some information if you have questions for me or questions for the planner who's assigned to this case. And then there's some additional information, the copy of the application at that link there on the bottom. So I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Marie Rodriguez for the record. You're with the school district?
I'm not. I'm with Wood Rogers on behalf of the school district.
Okay. The first page, it looks like the outline is only around the schools. And the next page is, it looks like it is including the portion of the neighborhood. And I'm very familiar with that. My daughter-in-law's grandmother used to live in that neighborhood over by Worcester. So are you including that portion of the neighborhood in this? Or just the schools themselves?
It's just the schools themselves, and just, I'm not sure which page you're looking at on the hard copy, but are you looking at the page shown on the screen?
Yes, which shows a portion of the neighborhood across from Worcester.
The
off
areas
of-
outlined in blue are the project boundaries and they're the parcel boundaries.
Okay, so that's just framing from your PowerPoint then?
Yeah, oh, yes, the black is just
The black is just a frame,
PowerPoint.
a frame
Yes.
for the picture of the PowerPoint.
Yes, I
So it-
apologize.
Okay, so then it is just the blue around the schools.
Yes.
Okay, that confused me. So question answered. Thank you.
Sure, no problem.
Anthony Dispensary for the record. So does the school district then own all of the property that's asked, that they're asking for redevelopment here? Or are there different parcels that are owned by different parties?
The two parcels that are subject to this zone change are owned by the school district.
Okay, and I noticed that there's that little yellow cutout there. Is that a different house that exists there, or what was?
That parcel, I believe, is owned by Tumwa, actually. It's a pump station.
Oh, okay. Because I was wondering if somebody's leaving their house all by themselves with a
No.
development that never happened or something.
No, utility infrastructure.
Okay, thank you.
Jürgen Hohen for the record. So the zoning change or the record there on the 580 or whatever that freeway is that goes north and south, it goes through the freeway to the other side, the school parcel.
The school parcel does not go underneath 580. That area you see in blue that has the PF is actually RTC's bus shelter. That's not part of this request.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Give a reminder for the record, with the recent changes as far as with the restructuring of Vaughn and Ecuador and all that kind of stuff, is this why they're trying to rezone these specific parcels to make sure everything falls underneath the, or what's the main purpose behind this?
I do not believe that the rezoning, so land use, right? We're talking just land use, not zoning of the schools or the areas that they serve. It is just a land use rezoning. Has anything to do with those other school sites. It is just an effort to align the zoning with the master plan designation in anticipation of a potential future expansion or redevelopment of the Wooster High School site.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Perfect. And Madam Chair, I do want to reflect for the record that member Arbitman had to leave a little early and he left at 7:37 PM or 6:37 PM, sorry.
Thank you. That brings us to item D, board, commission, committee member reports and announcements. Does anybody have any announcements? Or anything they want to share? Okay, I do have a few things then. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Give a reminder for the record, I just do want to extend my gratitude to Abby and all the great work she has done for us. It's kind of a shocker news to hear what's going on, but hey, it's for a good purpose. It's for something very important. And overall, thank you for everything you've done for us, and wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, guys.
I just wanted to remind everyone that March is National Women's History Month. This is to honor women's contribution in American history. So just a reminder to maybe brush up a little bit on our history and see what some of the fantastic women in history have done for us. It's kind of surprising how some of them, the credit was given to a man until recently when some of the stuff gets uncovered that women have done a lot more than they've been given credit for. So just a reminder about that. Also, if you know anybody that's thinking of buying a home or anything, Nevada Housing Division, their website has a Home is Possible program. So if you go to that website under Home is Possible, under events, they have a lot of virtual and in-person meetings or information training to help people buy home. And it includes some training or programs that are in Spanish. So good information to share for people out there. And something that our liaison, Abby, is going to be gone, but maybe whoever's going to be taking your place while you're serving. I would like to recommend maybe putting on a future agenda, having the park rangers share their program for the junior ranger program. Maybe come do a presentation, especially since we're coming into spring, and it would be a great activity for people to be aware of. And also, it's sometimes recommended that people check their smoke alarms when the time changes, which will be coming up in a few days. Later this month, our time changes. We go into daylight savings time. So just a reminder that the Northern Nevada Red Cross gives free smoke alarms and do free assessments in your home on your fire safety. So they have a local number, 775-954-1185. You just call that number. They will come make sure you have enough smoke alarms, make sure they're working, and if you don't, they will give you free alarms and install them for you. And going back to daylight savings time, that's this Sunday on the 9th. Okay. So item E, and I kind of jumped the gun on that, future agenda items. Anybody else have any future agenda items? Then we will have our public comment, item F, any public comment?
Yes. Okay. So we are at the point of the night where I'll take closing public comment. So if you are a member in the public and would like to give closing public comment, now is the time. And then if you're a member on Zoom, if you could use the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen. And seeing none, Madam Chair.
Well, that brings us to item G, adjournment. Do we have a motion and a second to adjourn?
Anthony Dispensary for the record. I'll make a motion.
Get reminded for the record. I second that.
Aye.